We'll start with the Irish Independent this morning. It's the only newspaper that doesn't lead with Liverpool versus Manchester City. They're going with the Rory McIlroy angle this morning. McIlroy has mental block with Augusta. This is top psychologists believing the talent alone won't be enough for Hollywood star to claim green jacket. That's Dr. Gio Valiante, who was speaking on the Golf Channel, I think, yesterday, who says Augusta National can punish you if you play too aggressively, but also refers to McIlroy saying that he essentially endured 5 hours of choking at Augusta National on Sunday, and he could face years of Masters anguish if he doesn't improve his mental game shortcomings. So I guess everybody's cashing in on the Rory McIlroy failing bandwagon at this point. It's a high-profile name that is underachieving, so therefore I'm going to say something outrageous about him. And
why can't Rory get no love?
I don't know. Like, okay, so we were not having a conversation just a couple of weeks ago on the show about how Rory has fixed his putting game with after a couple of sessions with Brad Faxon.
I mean, he had, and he had a week of absolute sensational putting, and then he had three days of sensational putting this week, but the fourth day, the putting let him down. It
was a small sample size we were basing it on, just because he had done a couple of sessions with this putting guru, just because he had shown up in one weekend. Granted, he won the competition, but he'd shown up in sensational style to win a competition on the PGA Tour. It didn't necessarily say that he was going to be able to handle, you know, the marble floor greens that exist at Augusta National.
But then he could for 3 days.
Okay, fair. But then he didn't hit any. He hit 8 greens in regulation on the Sunday. So like there is other elements to this. It wasn't just his short game that. Well, it was like essentially his approach shots which let him down for half the round. And of course, with the putter in hand, he was a disaster on like 5 or 6 holes.
David Duval has said in a piece in one of the papers that he thinks that, he definitely has the game to win. I just don't think he's going to do it. He's going to find it very difficult to recover from this, and that he should have been taking driver out a bit more often than he did and actually going for it and using his competitive advantage too. And the third in particular, he was saying he should just taken the driver out and belted it instead of... every single mistake he's ever made now gets parsed because he hasn't won. Whereas, because Spieth comes from way back on the last day, Spieth put himself in a position where he had to come from 9 shots back.
Yeah, talk about hindsight there. If you're Rory on the third tee, you've made up 2 shots on the second because Reed bogeyed, didn't he? Reed bogeyed, Rory birdied on the second hole, despite the fact that there was an eagle up there and he could have drawn level.
Yeah.
So of course there was a little bit of regret regarding that, but...
It was that killer instinct. It was also the point that, Rory decided that he was going to go out and put the pressure on Patrick Reed with the bravado, which was slightly unusual for him. But and then, obviously, Reed just fired back with, he's the one looking for the career Grand Slam, so, pressure. I don't know. Obviously, because he didn't win, everything he did was wrong. Whereas the truth is that there are a few things that went wrong. He didn't play well on Sunday. Playing well on Sunday is kind of the key thing.
Rory McIlroy, if you talk about people who went actually after the win, he went after the win straight away off the very first tee, and he skewed it completely right. He got very, very lucky there, so he's thinking to himself, right, okay, I got to relax a little bit. I'm going after this thing too hard.
Yeah.
So if David Duval is saying that on the third he needed to bring out the driver, I can't remember what club he used. What was it, a Treewood? I can't remember. I don't remember. But if he's saying that he needed to go after it a little bit harder, then screw that. I mean, he had just come off closing down the lead to 1 stroke after the second. So, I wouldn't blame him on that element of things. But as I say, a top psychologist does believe he's finished as a short game talent.
There's loads of Patrick Reed stuff in the papers today, and it's mostly the stuff about his family. I find a lot of this a little bit voyeuristic. It's like there's been a massive falling out. Some of the details, basically, Reed and his wife's family are now very closely aligned. As part of his entourage, his wife's brother is his caddy, and his wife's ma is somehow involved in helping to run the operation. And they seem like a very self-sufficient organisation that doesn't really take outsiders very much. His wife, sexistly, is referred to as feisty in the newspapers because, she represents the family in a certain way. But it is hard to watch, and it's hard to read all the details about his sister has been on social media talking about how the wife has split the family up, and Patrick has become selfish and self-indulgent, and and he had an amazing life, there was no abuse. It got really nasty really quickly, and frankly I don't really care about all that stuff. I mean, I care about the fact that he took a TUE and won straight away with the TUE, and that TUE ran out in 2017. We don't know if he's still on the medication. That's, to me, a far more interesting story than the personal soap opera voyeurism. Like, oh, look at all that stuff over there. That's all a bit grim, isn't it? No thanks.
Pick any other golfer in the world. Would we be getting this sort of insight into the failings of his relationship with his parents? Of course we wouldn't, because the world is up against Patrick Reed right now. It is Patrick Reed versus the world, and whether we like it or not, there is an element of an agenda against Patrick Reed. Because
if any golfer won, so I think if anybody wins, you just end up getting held up to a massive amount of scrutiny.
Okay, maybe. But there's only a handful of other golfers who would have faced something like that. Jordan Spieth wouldn't have faced that. Bubba Watson probably would have faced that if such problems existed in his personal life, which they don't. But I think there is only a handful of golfers which we would see these details thrown out there and discussed at large. And I certainly think Patrick Reed is one of those people. What we aren't discussing, by the way, is in the wake of this Deadspin article and Shane Ryan's excerpts coming back up this week, it's just how terrible an alleged thief Patrick Reed is. It's one thing I forgot to say yesterday. This whole story about the wad of cash. Nobody's saying that Patrick Reed is a terrible thief, because if he is a thief, then that's exactly what he is. He is the worst thief in the history of mankind. As in the fact that he would steal a wad of cash off somebody and then walk into the dressing room the next day with the Rolex on the wrist and the wad of cash in the hand.
The Rolex wasn't on the wrist, is the thing, isn't it? Isn't that it? It's like the Rolex disappeared.
Okay, well, either way, he's got a wad of cash in his hand, and it's a terrible excuse. That's what we need to be talking about. Patrick Reed, not the terrible family man, the terrible thief.
The issue is that he was asked, where did you get the money, Patrick? And he said, I won it from the college professor.
Don't bring in the money.
Fair enough, but when you've brought the money in, people go, where'd you get that? And he's like, I won it from a college professor. Not skins, what do you call it?
He's trying to hustle the professor, is what he said.
The professor, yeah. And so they went to the professor and went, I haven't played golf with him in 3 or 4 weeks. Now, if you're a college professor and you've just been hustled by a kid who's one of your students,
are
you going to fess up and go, yesterday. Yeah, I was doing that yesterday. I don't know. The story stinks, right? It stinks for Patrick Reed, and it stinks for the people who are, who have ganged up on him. Like a college frat team ganging up on the slightly weird, self-confident, quiet person. That's never happened in American sports. That's definitely never happened. So I don't know about that. But again, here we are feeding the voyeurism by going on and on about it.
That college professor just hates Patrick Reed. I was like, how will I get my revenge on him for, as you say, A, hustling me, and B, just for being a bit of a dick. I'm going to make sure your teammates hate you. That was a genius move from the professor, a not so genius move from Patrick Reed to bring the wad of cash into the dressing room the next day. But I'm sure he's learned from that. The Irish Times then, we're going to change to the football headlines now. Guardiola convinced City will create chances as he urges players not to give up. It is Manchester City chasing a 3-goal deficit as they come up against Liverpool in the second leg of their Champions League quarter-final this evening. The perfect game seems to be the quote that's doing the rounds everywhere, really, and that's the lead on the front of the Irish Examiner this morning. Pep Guardiola there kind of posing through gritted teeth. Guardiola believes extraordinary City can pull off the great escape. He has been talking up his team as well in the build-up to this game, saying that his team is extraordinary, that they are well capable of pulling this result off, and he is right. They do have that potential to put 5 goals past Liverpool, as they showed at the start of the season, but as Liverpool have also showed, they can put a couple past Manchester City themselves. So it's going to be a fascinating contest, and the back page of the Times Ireland edition talks about perfection. Guardiola wants perfection. Manager thinks history can galvanise City, as Salah is set to return for Liverpool. That is the big team news tonight, that Mo Salah is set to return for Jurgen Klopp's side. There he is on the back of the Irish Daily Mail as well, warming up alongside Virgil van Dijk. Hands up if you're fit to play, reads the headline, and beware of the thunderstorm. It'll be a torrid night, Klopp tells his stars. That's the headline on Dom King's story. And then finally for me, it's the back of the Herald. Klopp still wary. Pool boss hails outstanding City ahead of Etihad clash, while my team is top, says Pep. So I guess there's a bit of downplaying of chances from Jurgen Klopp, and a bit of kind of whatever the opposite of that is by Pep Guardiola in the build-up to the game.
I got a bit distracted there. I'm reading about Conor McGregor's latest escapades. This is in the Star this morning, and the New York Daily Post. So I don't know if you saw this story that Trump's personal lawyer yesterday had the FBI swoop in. A massive team of FBI lawyers swept into his office and took all his files. Big story. The paparazzi didn't notice this. In the same place, they were all in the lobby waiting for Conor McGregor to come back in after being arraigned in his assault trial. Everybody was kind of pointing out this kind of weird juxtaposition of Donald Trump, his lawyer, one of the biggest stories in the history of the world, and Conor McGregor's like puny little assault case that will probably end up making him an absolute fortune and Khabib an absolute fortune and the UFC an absolute fortune. I didn't realise that he didn't actually have the cash on him. I mean, I thought he always had like, 50 G's, baby, just knocking around. Here you go, judge. But they had to wait a couple of days to get the money wired from Ireland. So he paid 10% of the 50 grand, 5 grand, goes back to the hotel, and when you're stuck in New York, you're really rich, what are you going to do? You're going to have a party. A businessman who is staying on the same floor as McGregor has complained about the rowdy behaviour of McGregor and his entourage. And apparently somebody in the entourage has confirmed that, yes, he's sleeping till noon. That's what Conor's doing. He's sleeping till noon.
He is really crazy, our Conor McGregor. That's probably the rowdiest thing he's ever done, cause a disturbance on a hotel room floor.
There you go. His Brooklyn Rampage. Who's ready for Khabib versus McGregor? Who's ready for kebab versus McDonald's? Well, there you go.
Well, that is quite the face-off there, kebab versus McDonald's. McDonald's always wins, for the record.
He's in 5 takeaways. I get it now. I didn't get it. Right. 5 takeaways from Conor McGregor's Brooklyn Rampage.
Well, there, the puntastic nature of Off the Ball's followers kind of showing up right there. Yeah. Too puntastic for you, Ger, quite frankly.
Yeah. So I'm knee deep in this Conor McGregor story. How can I be expected to understand puns at the same time? A businessman who's staying at the Lowe's Regency in Park Avenue said he's fed up with McGregor's behaviour. He's in there causing trouble. I heard he was being rowdy last night. What do we expect?
Well, like rowdy Conor McGregor maybe is going to become his new nickname, because he's really shown up in this latest instance that he's a very rowdy man, which we never knew before. Thunderwall, Klopp is wary of City's goal threat. This is what Owen's just been talking about. And then golden moment for Irish legend's daughter, Mark Kinsela's daughter, Alice Kinsella, representing England in the Commonwealth Games, posing with her gold medal after winning on the beam. She's 17, and I guess if you're winning gold in the Commonwealth, you're heading to the Olympics at some point in the near future. Oh, okay. Also, this... wake me up when this one's over. Raymond Dominic wants the Ireland job. Screw you, Raymond. Screw you. You're not taking our money and you can't come here. Screw you. We don't want you. It's the only way to deal with that, right? Yeah.
No. Don't even consider Raymond Dominic as Ireland manager for a second.
Well,
we need to burn this one really quickly.
It's not up to me to make this decision.
Well, it's up to all of us. We all have a role to play. We must all let Raymond Dominic know, screw you. We're not giving you anywhere near anything like control or interest. We're not entertaining the notion of you as being involved with Irish football. Screw you, Rowan Dominic. The
democratic nature of being involved with the FAI, that's what we're going to do. Just put it to a straw poll.
Yeah, and sorry, Mark McCadden has an exclusive here about Conte set to lead the bridge earlier than anticipated, so it'll happen before the end of the season, according to that piece there. Perfect storm. They need to be perfect. He thinks it's going to be a storm. Perfect storm. He puts the two together. That's how headlines work. Apparently Marcus Rashford is pissed off at the lack of game time. That's on the back of the Mirror there as well. Thunder attack. Klopp will face City onslaught. Pep, my team is extraordinary. His team is extraordinary. I wonder, in a weird way, was the fluky 3-2 win for Manchester United at the weekend the best possible result in the long term for Manchester City? It wakes them up. It makes them the absence of complacency. It guarantees another season of Jose Mourinho. Another season of that mess. Another season of that, I'm not really quite sure what I want us to be. I'd like us to play with some attacking flair. I'd like us to have some superstars in the team with massive YouTube accounts and Twitter followers. But I haven't built a team here, have I?
I'd take the second part of that, because we should all want Jose Mourinho around just to add a little bit of sourness to the Premier League, because everything needs a bit of sourness in life, and Jose Mourinho is bringing that in absolute spadefuls at the moment. But the first part of that, if Manchester City are going into this game complacent,
not this game, into the rest of their they're building an empire. They're building the best team in Europe that's going to win 3 Champions Leagues over a 5 or 6 year period, right? That's what the project has to be. They're aspiring for the greatest team of all time. They're not trying to be like the first team to just win the Champions League once and then not do it again. It's Guardiola. Like, he hasn't come here and spent $500 million to win a league, another league, and a Champions League. He's got to build a dynasty.
Yeah,
So
it is
that's what they're trying to do.
It is Guardiola. He's a man who doesn't get complacent. He's a man who doesn't need one result to go against him for him to suddenly feel, do you know what, this is going to perk me up right away, you know.
That team coasting through 2-0, like it was so easy for them that they couldn't stay concentrated in the second half against Manchester United at home to win the league. They needed to kick up the hole.
No, they didn't.
And they got it.
Well, they got it last week against Liverpool, and that's all they needed.
Well, the Liverpool thing is like just, that's going to happen to you. But the complacency against Manchester United, that was different.
It was also a bit of a freak result. Let's call a spade here. Like, I mean, the complacency should never have even been a factor in it, because Manchester City could have been 4 or 5 goals up by half time. So, like, this may or may not have been a factor. Like, I don't buy it, quite frankly. I don't buy that Pep Guardiola needs any sort of kick in the behind.
Like the
players.
team.
Like, look at Vincent Kompany when he celebrates his goal at the weekend.
Look at Vincent Kompany. What the hell is he doing in that second half? Look at him. Like, completely out of position, not being a leader. Like, why is the ball at Vincent Kompany's feet when you're chasing a goal with 5 minutes left to go as well? And he's like looping these crappy balls out to the left wing.
Well, I know I've been accosted by Kevin Kilbane on this programme before for suggesting that Vincent Kompany isn't the player he once was. So I wouldn't dare go down that garden path again for fear that, you know, I actually get hung out to dry, that he's listening in and calls in or anything like that.
Let him call, I think you're right.
But I think there is an element of that in it, rather than complacency, that maybe, and I've got to be very careful here, Vincent Kompany might not be as good as he once was.
Right, a quick comment from Digger. Good morning to you. I hope you're well. Even if Reid's family were right originally, they've now lost the moral high ground by running constantly to the press. Regarding Rory, he said himself 2 years ago he has a block regarding the Masters. Every year that goes by, it'll become more Lendl and Wimbledon and Jimmy White. Jimmy White in the Crucible, of course.